Hey, it's CSEC Panda here. Today I want to talk to you about written communication. Definitely that's something that's going to come up on the exam in one form or another, and it's something that just because you are also trying to go out into the world and not only trying to do this exam, even though I know that's what's on your mind right now, it's something that you would want to know how to do. Alright, so today we're going to go over 4 types of communication. 2 of them are going to be letters, then we're going to do memos and an email. Usually on the exam they ask you to write one of these things, so it's definitely something to know how to do. Alright, so first up, before we get into actually talking about this, we want to make sure that you understand what written communication is, what it's for, what it's not, etc. So that if you get stuck on the exam or anything like that, you can think your way out of it, which is important. Alright, so according to the textbook and the syllabus, communication has these 5 features to it, right? The sender, the receiver, the message, the channel, and the feedback or reply. And when you really think about it, that is what communication is. Somebody sends something, somebody receives it. What is received and sent is the message. The message has to be transmitted to the receiver somehow, which is the channel. And then they have to say something in response so that you know that communication happened. So that would be the reply. So when you are looking at written communication, which is just a written way of doing exactly that, you would be wanting to make sure that there is a way to identify who sent this, who received this, what the message itself is, what channel it's going to be sent by, like how it's going to be sent, and there's got to be a way for there to be feedback, right? So that's kind of like just a short way to check whether your message or your letter or your memo or your email or whatever has the things that it needs, like, does this make sense? Will this work for communication? Alright, so real quick we should go over some advantages and disadvantages, because they like to ask this too, of written communication. Alright, so the pros are, written communication is official. That means that it's very organized, it's uniform, there's a way to do it. It's not something that you might say, oh, well, that doesn't really count as communication, because it's definitely happened, it's a letter, it's an email, it's official, right? The second advantage of written communication is that it provides a permanent record. Again, if you needed to reference this or to remember exactly what was said or requested, or you needed for any reason to refer to what was said, written communication will allow you to do that, as opposed to a phone call or just speaking to someone where you could remember it differently, or it may not be there for reference if you need it because it didn't get written down, it was just spoken out. Alright, and the next advantage of written communication is that it provides legal evidence. So if anything ever goes wrong, you're in court or what have you, it's written. That's why sometimes when business dealings are being done and something's beginning to sound a little bit sketchy, people will say, hey, can I get that in writing? Because once you write something down, it becomes legal, it becomes official, and it gets way more real. Alright? So the disadvantages now of written communication are that it can be time-consuming to produce. Like, it's just easy to pick up the phone and call somebody and just get a message across really quick like that. But as we know, that wouldn't be as official, so you gotta write it down. But the downside is, it takes some time, getting the structure together. For all the reasons that it's good, it's a little time-consuming to produce. So the second thing is, there's going to be a delay in feedback. Again, versus if you have verbal communication, if you speak to somebody right now, they're probably going to respond to you right now. You're going to know what the response is. With a letter or an email or a memo, you need to wait. You just have to wait some time for them to get the message, format their response, send it back. So that can be a disadvantage if something needs to be communicated in a hurry, or you need a response within an hour or something like that. Those are times that you would need to know that written communication is going to take a while. And then sometimes another con, there can be privacy concerns, because for the same reason that you write something down and it's super official, which is a good thing sometimes, it can be a bad thing if somebody really did intercept an email that wasn't for them, or you left a letter lying around and it was confidential, it got into the wrong hands, all of your business is just exposed. So there is that privacy concern as well with written communication. Alright, so we've gone over what the elements of communication would be: the sender, the receiver, the message, the channel, and the feedback or reply. And we've seen some of the advantages and disadvantages of writing stuff down. That being said, letters can serve different purposes. They can straight up provide info. They can be used to make an offer, to make an inquiry, to confirm details about something, to make a complaint about something, as a letter of thanks, apology, application, congratulations. You name it, if you have a message to send to somebody, you can use a letter to do it. And in the business world, a lot of times, it will be a letter. Alright, so let's look at some things to know about letters, alright? Whenever you're writing a letter, you gotta know what the purpose of this is going to be. Which one of those things is it going to be? Is it apology? Is it an offer? Because the tone of the letter is going to sound different. The kinds of words that you choose are going to be different depending on what the purpose of the communication is. Alright? Now, letters have a format, and the point of the format of the letter is that everything is logically presented so that it is very clear to the sender, the receiver, anybody who needs to read this, exactly what's going on. So, the format of a letter. Let's look at it, right? So every letter has to have these things, or else it's not a letter, it won't work. There are 7 things that have to be on a letter for it to be a letter. 7 things, okay? The address, the date, the addressee, the greeting, the body of the letter, the complimentary close, and the signature. Alright, now these things can appear on slightly different parts of the letter depending on who's sending it and what type of letter it is, but I'm going to show you the 2 kinds that are most important here, so you don't really need to worry about that too much. But remember, it's the date, the address, the addressee. The addressee is the person that the letter is being sent to, and the address, the person who's sending this letter, right? The greeting is der whoever. The body of the letter is the information that's in it, literally the message. The complimentary close is the yours sincerely, yours faithfully, yours respectfully, that sort of thing that comes before the signature. And the signature is the name of the person who is sending the letter to authorize that, yep, I'm sending this letter. Alright, now let's just look at an example here of a business letter that is being sent by a person to a company. Alright, this looks a little bit different than a letter that a company would send to a person, and we're going to look at that after. Alright, so let's say we are a blank piece of paper here, and this is how it's going to go. There's going to be the address first. Now, if you ever, I should say before, if you're ever confused about where these things go, on business letters, everything basically just goes to the left. Like, there's been some idea about the different format, block and semi-block and these things, but CXC appears to be fine with the standard business letter format of just putting everything on the left margin. And honestly, if you're confused, you can do that and it'll work, okay? Alright, so this is a letter from a person to a company. So you see he has his address there. That's the person who's sending the letter. Right? Right here. 123 Little Lane, small town, Trinidad, West Indies. That is the address of the person who is sending the letter. That needs to be in there, because if it's not in there, then the person who receives the letter won't have anywhere to send it back to. So you have to put your address on it when you're sending a letter. Then you have the date as the next thing. The date has to be in there, because if you don't put the date in, the person who's receiving the letter, they have no context for when this was sent, when this was written. If you say next Tuesday, they don't know when that is. It's just, it needs to have a date, okay? Alright, so the next thing is going to be the addressee. Now, the addressee is the person that this letter is being sent to. When it's a letter from a person to, like, a department in a company or so, you don't really know, a lot of times, the name of the person who's there. Like, you don't have a name that you're writing to Mr. John Doe, so it would just be addressed to the manager of a department or to a whole department. In this case, it's the sales department, and you're trying to get this to the sales manager, right? Of company name and their address. That is the complete information of the addressee. So the department or the person that you're sending it to, the company name, their street address, that's the addressee, right? Alright, so then you have the salutation or the greeting, which is going to be Dear Sir or Madam in this case. Again, because you don't know the person who's going to be getting this letter. They might be a sir, they might be a madam. This is just the way standard business letters are opened, Dear Sir or Madam. The next thing is going to be the body of the letter. Now you want the body of the letter to contain the complete message that you want to send as briefly as possible. At the same time, for the sake of getting your marks for knowledge and understanding, you don't want to write this as if it's being written by an absolute robot and you just write exactly what they had on the paper. So you throw in a little, a little something to spice it up, depending on what they ask you for. You just kind of, get into the role and add a few little details, but like not more than a sentence or two, because when you're in that exam, you don't have a lot of time, okay? So in this case, this guy is basically saying, I'm a small contractor. I like using your blocks because they add this elegant touch to the stonework that I do for my clients. And then you get right to the point. I was wondering if you have any other styles in stock besides the pattern of your easy stack blocks that I'm normally seeing. I would love to know if they're available and how many other styles you carry. And then you just wrap it up and start getting polite right there. Thank you for your response. Thank you in advance for your response. Anything that is just polite can go here. I appreciate your attention. Really just anything that sounds polite and sounds like you are wrapping this up as quickly as possible. You put that there, and then you have the complimentary close, which should be yours sincerely if you just want to be safe. Yours faithfully is another one. They are about the same, and that's just the complimentary close that has to go before the name. In this case, it's Marlon McMurphy's. He's signing the letter, right? So that's who it's from. Now, all of this information is in here, and it's complete now. So you see we had the address of the person who was sending it, the date that it was sent on, the addressee to whom it's being sent, by department and then company and then street address. Then we had the complimentary greeting, or the salutation, Dear Sir or Madam. We had the body where we got to the point of it, and we didn't really waste too much time being polite. Then we had the complimentary close, yours sincerely or yours faithfully, and then we signed it, right? So those are the 7 things that you have to put in, and that's a letter. That is a good letter, that will work every time. It won't take too long to write, and it's what they're looking for. Now, the interesting thing is that sometimes you're not writing as a person to a company, or especially if you're doing paper 3, they might have you write the letter both to the people and then write their response. So if you have to write a letter from a company to a person, you might have to format it a little bit differently, and let me show you how, okay? So companies, because they send tons of letters all the time, and as just a way of being official, they have a letterhead. A letterhead is just their information, that is to say the name of the company, their contact information, maybe their logo, their street address, that kind of stuff, printed at the top of the paper that they use to send letters on. So it saves a lot of time. They don't have to, when the secretary's typing letters, it's not like you have to type it out every single time. It's just pre-saved as the letterhead. It's on top. When you're going through a bunch of your letters that you've received from people, it also allows you to glance right away and see, okay, this is a letter that's clearly from this bank or that company or whatever, because their letterhead is on it. So if they ask you to send a letter from a business to a person, then a lot of times you can put the letterhead type stuff up here. So it would really be the name of the company, the street address of the company, probably their phone and fax number if it's given to you, maybe their email address, maybe their logo. Depending on what they give you, that's where it would go in the letterhead. And this would be at the center of the top of the paper up there. And as you can hear, the letterhead is basically taking the place of the address, but all the other stuff still has to be in there. So you continue now on the left side and you just bring it down, everything on the left. So that would be the date, right? So let's say it's the 22nd of August now, 2021. And then you would have your addressee. That's the person that you're sending this letter to. So you'd be referencing the letter that McMurphy sent you, this Marlon McMurphy's guy, and you're writing back to him now. So his name goes here, it's to Marlon McMurphy's at the address that he had as his address before. So you see how that comes in there? And then you have Dear Mr. McMurphy's as the greeting. Another difference that can come up if you're writing as a business to a person a lot of times is this subject line. So that would just be whatever the thing is. If they give you a subject line, then that's where it goes, below the Dear whoever. And if you have to make one up, well, you just make up a subject that's relevant and then you put it in. Alright? So in this case, I've just put block styles. And so then you go into the body. So, thank you for your letter dated is a great way to start any letter because it gets straight to the point. A lot of times, business letters, the whole idea of it is getting straight to the point. Alright? Thank you for your letter dated, in this case, the 17th of August, 2021. We are pleased to inform you that we do carry other styles of our Easy Stack blocks. All styles are in stock and can be sent to you within 2 to 3 business days of your order. I have enclosed a copy of our 2021-2022 catalog for your perusal. Please feel free to contact our sales department with any further questions you have or for any more info or something like that. Yours sincerely, Sam Stone, Sales Manager. Alright, so some things I want to point out here. We did the body of the email. We did the body of the letter. We've got the information in here. We've gone straight to the point. We've come down to this polite closing of please feel free to contact us, or if you have any further questions, just something that sounds polite, but like we're wrapping it up. And then you want to have your complimentary close, right? So again, yours sincerely is your best friend. If you just want to get something that will work every time, just put yours sincerely. And then there's the space for him to sign his name in person, and it's written Sam Stone with the position underneath. I mean, not as written Sam Stone. This guy is, his name is Sam Stone, but whoever is signing the letter, obviously, you understand that, right? Okay, so the person is signing the letter, and then their position goes below, right? And so that's how you wrap that up. Now, you notice I said in this that enclosed is a copy of our catalog. That's an enclosure. So to signal that there's an enclosure, which means that I'm sending something along with this letter, and you should expect to find it inside the package, in this case a catalog, you just put enclosures below and then the number, so like enclosures 1 or ENCS. Sometimes it's abbreviated or shortened to that, but you have to mention that there's an enclosure, right? So that just goes below the signature, below the title, right there. Enclosures 1, and that's it. So that is a perfectly good letter from a company to a person. This will work even if it's a letter in response to a job application or something like that. It would just be the letterhead, the date, the addressee, who would be the person that you're writing to. Then you'd have Dale, person that I'm writing to. The subject line, if that was the thing. The details. Most of the time they give you the details that they want you to put in, so just kind of rearrange them a little bit, don't leave any out, and make sure that it kind of sounds like a person wrote this and you're not a robot, so you can get all of the marks for understanding what you're doing. And then you want to have the complimentary close, yours sincerely. You want to sign it whoever the person at the business is with their position below their name. And then if they have any enclosures or anything, you want to note that at the bottom. So that is a letter. Alright, so next I want to talk about an email. Emails are something that are more recent, as we know, than letters, but they basically serve the same purpose. The benefits of email are that due to the fact that they're electronic, they are faster, they just are, to send. It's easier to attach things if you have to. They allow you to receive a response a lot more quickly than if you had sent a letter. And they're also easier to follow the response thread because it's just electronically stacked for you. Alright, so because there's the same concept of having the sender, the receiver, the message, the channel, and the feedback, because this is still a form of written communication and email, you need to have a certain structure to make sure that all of those points are being achieved. So for an email, you need to have the email address of the person you want to send this to, your own email address for them to respond to, and then it also has to feature a subject line so we know what we're talking about. The date is also there. I have yet to see them specify exactly where they want you to put the date, but on real emails, you put the date in the corner there. And honestly, I did this and it worked out fine. So I would say put the date in the corner there. That's where it appears in real life. And then you need to have from somebody at mail.com. Just go with that. Or Gmail or whatever you want, but it just needs to look like the format of an email address so you look like you know what you're doing. Right? So from the sender's email address, right? Somebody, maybe an abbreviation of their name, at mail.com, to whoever the receiver is supposed to be. Again, an abbreviation of their name at mail.com will do just fine. The subject, you have to pick a subject that sounds like exactly what we're going to talk about, and then the body of it. So it really opens very much like a letter with dear whoever is fine. And then below you just have some paragraphing. Again, you're trying to get straight to the point. But also still sound like you know what you're doing and that you didn't just copy this off the internet. And then you want to come down with thank you or some sort of politeness, very much like the letter towards the end. Any kind of, if you need to contact me, please feel free to reply to this email, or you can get me anytime, or I'd love to answer any further questions you have. Just throw in something polite there just to wow them. And then you have the complimentary close, just like with a letter. So it can be regards, best regards, warm regards, yours faithfully, yours sincerely, that kind of stuff. And then you sign it with whoever the sender is. So Sam Smith, Sam Stone, that's what happens. If there are attachments to the letter, I don't know how they want you to specify that. But again, in real life, attachments just appear very much like enclosures just below the name of the sender, below there where they've signed it off. So if that comes up, then you could probably just put that there and that should be fine. But again, when you're checking this over, you just want to make sure that it's definitely from somebody to somebody about a particular subject. It has a date, it says hello and goodbye in a polite way, and that the message is in between all that, and you're good to go. And so the last type of communication I want to talk about in this particular video as written communication is the memo. Now, a memo is different from a letter or even sometimes an email, because while those are often external documents, meaning that they're sent from the company to somebody outside of the company, customers, suppliers, whoever it is, memos are always internal communication, meaning that it's always from somebody in the company to somebody else or some other group of people working in the same company. So that's what memos are for, right? So for that reason, memos don't have like an address out to somewhere else because it's just to your colleagues or something like that. Memos are kind of what they had before email was a thing, to have official communication internally, but sometimes emails are used for that now. Still, it might come up, so you need to know how to do this. Alright, so the most important things about a memo is that it has to say the word memo, which is short for memorandum if you didn't know that. You can write memo or memorandum in the center there like that, but you have to put that in. If you can't remember how to spell memorandum, then memo is fine too. And so it has this format for what's said. Alright, to, from, date, subject. Right? It always has to be like that. To, from, you can remember it like Thursday, Friday. And then there's the date, and then there's the subject. Subject could be labeled subject like this, or it might just be a title on it like that. But just try and make sure that you don't leave any of these things out, because again, without them, you won't know who this memo is to, you won't know who it's from, you'd have no context for the date, and you wouldn't really know what it's about, so that's the format. The wording of a memo is really, really brief and almost kind of rude sounding, because it's just intended to be like a little note of an official thing that's happening. So in this case, we have Mrs. Mary Oxford telling Mr. Todd Hop on June 10th, 2021 that there's going to be a tour of the factory operation. And she just says, the Junior Construction Club will be visiting on Tuesday, June 15th at 2 p.m. for a 1-hour factory tour. Please show them the production line and ensure that the visit is safe and informative. If you need any further information, you may contact me at my phone number or by email at my email address. And that's just it. That's how short and direct to the point memos are. So that's just what you want to remember about them. They're brief and they start with the word memo. They have this to, from, date, subject layout, and then they're just like briefly to the point. With those down, you basically have everything you need to handle the written communication side of the exam. If they should throw you something unexpected that you didn't see coming, like, I don't know, a report or something different like that, basically you just want to remember the same idea of written communication is that you need to have mention of the sender, the receiver, the message itself, the channel that it's being sent through, and then some way for feedback or a reply. Alright, so whether they ask you for a letter of application or a letter of acceptance of a job offer or a letter of resignation or whatever the thing is, the format will always be basically the same. And if you're writing from inside the company to inside the company as a letter, then there's no problem with just using the information that they give you. You can put it on the letterhead or as just the regular addressee. The most important thing at the end of the day would be to make sure that you have all of the information on there, try to get it in the right order, and you should be good to go. So I hope that this has been a help to you. I hope that any questions that you had about how to do letters or memos or any one of these things are cleared up. Yeah, you're good to go. So if you need anything more, please leave it in the comment section. But otherwise, I think that you have everything that you need here, and I wish you the best on your exam.